Somebody once told me the world is gonna roll me. I ain't the sharpest tool in the shed.
All right, welcome back, everybody. WHIP time is 11:38. We were just joined a few minutes ago by the new head coach of Penn, and that's Steve Donahue. Now joining us on the hotline to chat a little NCAA tournament is the head man at St. Joe's, keeping it in the Big Five with Phil Martelli. Coach Martelli, it's Zach Gelb here on Temple's campus, WHIP. Thanks for a few minutes. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Zach. How are you?
I'm doing great. We appreciate you giving us a few minutes today. I'm just wondering, does head coach Phil Martelli, does he fill out an NCAA bracket?
No, I haven't done that in a long time. I don't think I've ever done it as a head coach. Not sure I did it as an assistant coach. You're so driven now to getting your team in the bracket that you don't have a lot of time to study the bracket. I had more knowledge several years ago. I was a voter in the USA Today poll. I stopped doing that just to concentrate on my own team as much as I could. So obviously I follow it. It's my business to know what's going on in college basketball, and but I don't sit and say, oh yeah, you know what? I think I'm really upset that BYU got upset last night because I thought they were the better team than Ole Miss.
Gotcha. I'm just wondering, though, as well, going off of that, your grandson is absolutely adorable. We see him all the time in the post-game press conferences. Does he ever come to you and say, hey, Grandpa, fill out the bracket with me, or does he not fill out any brackets yet? Is he too young?
No, he did his own.
Really?
His sister's 3. He did one with his mother. So the 3 of them have something going on, and I'm happy to announce as an Atlantic 10, proud to be part of the Atlantic 10, that he has VCU beating Villanova in the championship game.
Wow, so he's going to go with Havoc Nation and Shaka Smart. That's some great stuff, and we're definitely going to hold him to it, and we'll keep him on to the high standards and examine his bracket all the way through, Coach.
So am I going to. Right.
So taking a look at your team this year, obviously we were at the game when Temple played against you guys in a beautiful Hagen Arena, and you guys got the better end of Temple. That game came down to the wire. I'm just wondering, what's the future of your basketball team?
The future's being determined, to be honest with you, Zach, every afternoon in our Hagen Arena. We did not score enough. We were 300 or lower ranked in 2-point shooting, 3-point shooting, foul shooting, and points scored. And we have a lot of guys back, but we have a lot of guys back to finish 300th or lower. So we have a lot of work to do. I think it's a wonderful group. They work very hard in practice. We just were not skillful enough to be successful both in Philadelphia and in the Atlantic 10. So how we'll be going forward is going to be determined on April the 3rd in Hagen Arena. It's going to be determined on June the 5th in Hagen Arena. It's going to be determined on August 2nd. Maybe they're home from summer school. It's going to be determined how hard they're willing to work. And not just how hard, but are they efficiently working on the areas in their skill game that need to be developed.
Phil Martelli is our guest right now. Zach Gelb here with you, WHIP Radio via iHeartRadio, talking a little St. Joe's, Temple, and NCAA tournament as things got kicked off last night with the last 4 in-games and some really exciting games. Temple doesn't make the NCAA tournament. That's the big talk of the town here. They were 23-10. To me, they passed my eye test. I don't know what the NCAA selection committee was looking at. They blew Kansas out of the gym with a 25-point victory. We just had the new head coach of Penn on, Steve Donahue, and he called Temple not getting into the NCAA tournament a disgrace. Where do you stand on this? Do you think Temple got jabbed out of the NCAA tournament?
Well, I can't be any more disappointed than if it had happened to my own team. Fran Duffy is as close a friend as I have. I thought the job that he did in molding that team and adding in Jesse Morgan and Devin Coleman, Jalen Bond, was an extraordinary job. I thought every night they went out and really competed at a very, very high level. The fact that they were left out, I would agree with that. I think it's a disgrace. You used the term here, Zach, about an eye test. The first time in my 20 years as a head coach but I've heard now that we're into eye test, that the committee is going to be talking about how you look, and the fact that they so cavalierly put in Power 5 conference teams that have double-digit losses, and they ignored teams like Temple, they ignored teams like Dayton, really. They ignored teams like Boise State. Think if you were a Boise State fan and you're told on Sunday you're going to the tournament, you've been selected to go to the tournament because you won your regular season in a tough league, the Mountain West. You win the regular season, you're Boise State, you have 2 days to get to Dayton to play Dayton at Dayton. It's like, thanks for coming. Here's your parting gift. They've hijacked the tournament. The Power 5 conferences have hijacked the tournament this year. Temple's a shining example. To a lesser degree, the Richmonds, the Old Dominions, the Murray States. It used to be a tournament that included everybody, and I'm afraid that we're headed in a direction where they're going to exclude anybody that's not in the Power 5 conferences. So this is a difficult week for everybody that's in one of the non-Power 5 conferences, and certainly it's a difficult week for Dumpf and Temple and their ardent fans.
I agree with you because I just don't know what else Mike Oresco and the American Athletic Conference could do to get some respect. They won the entire NCAA championship last year, and this year they only get 2 teams in. When you take a look with UConn and Cincinnati getting in, does the AAC conference, does it have respect? Because I just really don't see what else Temple could have done this year to get them into the NCAA tournament.
No, you get all the respect, but here's the deal. When they tell you that conference affiliation doesn't matter, it really doesn't matter until they brought it up, until the committee reintroduced that, because the head of the committee was the one that used eye test on national TV, speaking specifically about UCLA. But while everybody's focused on UCLA, they're ignoring Oklahoma State, which lost 4 straight games in February. They're ignoring Indiana. They're ignoring these Power 5 conference teams that went under 500 in their own league. So, really, you're saying the eye test it's going to be a little bit difficult to follow, but shouldn't the guys from Oklahoma State look different than the guys from Temple? There's no recruiting where a kid has said, I'm choosing Oklahoma State over Temple. I'm choosing Indiana over Dayton. So they're going to look different. So they're going to pass the eye test. But the eye test didn't work for Kansas that night on the floor. When 5 guys went against 5 guys, Temple whipped them. And go on and on and on and on and on. You know, Murray State, 25 straight times they won. 25 straight games. I don't care who you play. 25 straight games they win. And UCLA can get into that tournament 4-11 or 4-12 in road or neutral games, 12-12 against RPIs of 200 and lower. Nah, this is a crisis period right now this is really a crisis period for college basketball.
No question about that, as Phil Martelli is our guest right now, the head coach of St. Joe's. Fran Dunphy, though, has a tough job tonight because you've had teams in the past that think they've been NCAA tournament bound and have to get into the NIT. And just the way that we value, in my generation, the NIT, there really isn't much value to it. How does Fran motivate these guys to bring it 110% tonight? Because their emotions have just been torn. They've been twisted ever since they thought they were going to the tourney, and now they know they aren't. How do they give their best effort up against Bucknell?
Well, I wholeheartedly agree with you. And sometimes, to be honest with you, Zach, not just the fact that you've had your heart ripped out from not going to the NCAA tournament. You've had your heart ripped out because you've lost in your, whether it be the Atlantic 10 or the ACC, the AAC tournament. You have this feeling of, you know what, let's just end this. We've been doing this now for 6.5 months. Since those kids reported to school in August, they've been driven for one thing, to win a championship, to play in the NCAA tournament. And now, all of a sudden, you know, calling it the way it is, that you're going to enter a building where there's no juice, where there's a possibility that Bucknell is going to have the juice of their fans. Bucknell won their regular season in their league. It's a real challenge, and I think that what you're going to see is the strength of character of a Will Cummings. You're going to see the strength of character that Fran Dunphy has on that team. That, again, they're going to lace them up, and they're going to play for each other. And at the end of the day, they're going to say, you know what, I'm a competitor, and when I compete, it could be flipping coins, it could be checkers. Anytime I compete, I am out here to win. And that is what will drive the Will Cummings-led team. Not the Fran Dunphy-led team, but the Will Cummings-led team.
I'm just curious, if that was your team, what would you have said to the players after they were told they're not going to the NCAA tournament?
I've been heartbroken. I don't know. I really don't. And I texted with Fran as this was happening, and he's masterful about, shedding a light and really a life lesson. And that would have been my message. That forget the basketball part of this. There's hundreds of thousands of people looking at it from a basketball point of view. But our responsibility as coaches is that the lessons learned today or taught today will impact their lives 10 years from now, 12 years from now. They have a death in the family. They have a loss of a job. They have to make a difficult decision on, for their children. And they have to go back to the lessons that were learned, and this is a lesson learned. We emptied our tank. We did everything that we possibly could have, and others have determined how we'll be labeled. We can leave here with that label. We can refuse that label by driving forward, lifting our heads, but we're going to do it together. I would not have let anybody out of that room until they felt whole. And I watched with admiration how Will Cummings handled the television interviews and how Fran Dunphy handled the television interviews. And you can't let anybody on your team be alone because, they're going to become depressed and think, you know what, maybe if I had done this one thing in one game. And it didn't really come down to that. It's the whole year that had an impact.
Powerful words from the head coach of St. Joe's, Phil Martelli. I do want to take a look at this field, though, with the NCAA tournament. Obviously, the big story is Kentucky. They're undefeated right now. In that 2003-2004 season, you had some pretty good players. Jameer Nelson, Pat Carroll, who got inducted into the Big Five Hall of Fame last year. You guys ended up not having perfection, losing in that opening round of your conference tournament. But during that quest for perfection, how did you handle it in the locker room, and how much pressure is really on Kentucky to go out there and win the entire thing?
Well, I think the last part of that first. I think that the pressure has been handled by John Calipari. He's talked about it. He's made it a mission. And listen, they've won SEC titles at Kentucky many times. They've won national championships at Kentucky. John Calipari's won a national championship at Kentucky. What he has done is he has set this team up to challenge history. No one has gone 40-0. No Kentucky team, any team has ever done that. And I believe that by talking about it and talking about his players, about it's on them individually to grow, and that they have grown during the season, and they haven't gotten stifled by the media attention. They haven't gotten stifled by the pressures. It's just been extraordinary. That's why he should be the National Coach of the Year in a landslide, in my opinion, because of the way he has managed this. For us, I tried to deal with it as, you know what, it's a basketball game. We have one more game to win, not our 25th game in a row, or not we've got to rebound from this loss. We were 27-1 going into the NCAA tournament. We have to rebound at that point. All that we tried to do was take it a day at a time and say, this day, let's be as good as we can be. Retrospectively, it got to us. We did not play as well at the end of the year as we did in the middle of the year. And had we been clicking on all cylinders in the Atlantic 10 tournament, it may not have been enough. Xavier was an Elite 8 team that year that beat us. But if we were clicking on all cylinders, I do believe that we would have played for the national championship that year. But as you're going through it, you think you're doing it the right way, and I can't say to everybody, yeah, I'm 100% sold that I would do it the same way again.
So if you were on the opposition, let's say you're opening up against Kentucky or you're playing them in the Elite Eight or the Final Four. Obviously, Kentucky has, for pound, the most talents. They have so many All-Americans. Just look at the way they do their rotations. How would you go about trying to attack Kentucky and taking them down if you had to play them in this year's NCAA tournament, Coach?
Wow. I haven't really studied them. I think with everybody in this tournament, offense is on the downtick in college basketball. I think you would have to have fewer possessions, and you're going to have to make them beat you with jumpers. And at the same time, on your possessions, you're going to have to probe and find the moment of weakness. I think the beauty of their team is that they haven't had moments of weakness at the defensive end. But I think in this tournament, that's the way you would have to do it. And not so much hold the ball, but I think you would want fewer possessions so you have a chance. Fewer possessions is going to give you a chance because you're going to have less talent than they have, and you're going to have less athletic ability than they have.
Final one here with you, Coach. Villanova is going to be the talk of the Big Five, and obviously a lot of Big Five coaches are going to be rooting for them. They have the consistency. They have the experience. I'm a big fan of Archie Diacono. I think he's a really clutch player. Make the case for Villanova. Why is this the year they cut down the nets and win the NCAA tournament?
Because they're one of the few teams in the country that has balance. They have a balance they have a balance on their roster. There's no one player that if you stop him, you're going to be successful. They have balance offensively and defensively, and they're older. They're just an older team when you look at the years of experience that they have, and I think they're going to be driven by their second round exit last year. I think it's going to be a very, very special year for all the Villanova faithful.
Coach, always love talking to you. Always love the excitement and the perspective you bring. Thanks for a few minutes, and I'm sure we'll talk to you again somewhere down the road.
Zach, thanks for including me, and good luck to Temple tonight.